Hey, everybody, I'm Eugene Driscoll. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indie podcast. This, if you have eyes, is a video podcast this week, and I'm very honored to welcome to the program for the first time ever, Mr. Jorge Cabrera. Hello, George.
Hey, Eugene. How are you, buddy?
Not bad at all. So, Mr. Cabrera is the endorsed Democrat running to represent the 17th State Senate District, which includes R-Ansonia, Beacon Falls, Bethany, and you can probably hear my kids screaming in the next room.
That's
My
all right.
mother, their mom's at work today. But anyway, Derby, Hamden, Naugatuck, and Woodbridge. And it's not like I just told the kids, hey, can you guys be quiet for maybe 30 minutes? So Mr. Cabrera is one of two candidates looking to challenge Republican incumbent State Senator George Logan in the fall. The other Democrat looking to do that is Justin Farmer, and a Democratic primary between Mr. Farmer and Mr. Cabrera is scheduled for August 11th. So a caveat, as I complain to anyone who will listen, I am not a state reporter. I do not cover state issues on a daily basis. So I really have no business having Mr. Cabrera or before this, Mr. Farmer on. But hey, part of the mission of the Valley Indie is to introduce you to candidates. There is, on this recording, the primary is a week away. So why not? But again, if you have any hate you want to throw my way, just go ahead and do it. I don't care. But all right, so we went over a bunch of policy debates or policy issues during a debate about a week or so ago. Actually, before I should just read. This is a very important message. It's not a sponsorship, but just something I want to share in every podcast. It's from the Valley Community Foundation, Valley United Way, and others. COVID-19 has changed life as we know it, and the Valley needs your help now more than ever. The region's health and human service providers face unprecedented challenges in meeting the needs of those affected by the pandemic. Some organizations are even at risk of closing their doors. You can make a difference right here in our community by joining with others in three ways. Give directly to Valley nonprofits, participate in the Valley United Way annual campaign, or support the Valley Community COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund. To learn more, please visit valleyfoundation.org. Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's good.
So let's get the negative stuff out of the way, if you don't mind. I want to ask a sort of a challenging question, one that was like on our list of questions when the New Haven Independent and the Valley Independent team to do this debate. But we all thought like 1 minute is not nearly enough time to answer this question. So it pops up on social media all the time. As recently as yesterday, on one of your supporters' private pages, someone had brought this up. And it goes back a few years ago. Kevin Rennie, who is a columnist, former lawmaker, blogger in the state of Connecticut, he published a blog post basically asking whether you were the Jorge Cabrera Jr. who was fined $750, something like 20 years ago, for, quote, being present while a Platt Street resident marked his absentee ballot and taking possession of the ballot, unquote, according to a 2011 summary in the Connecticut Post newspaper. I'm sure you've seen these posts. I just want to give you a chance to talk about that incident.
So about 20 years ago, I was in a campaign challenging the established political machine in Bridgeport. And after the election, as part of retribution and to intimidate me, a complaint was filed along with many other people. At the time, I was actually living in Massachusetts. I just graduated from college in 1998, and I was also about to get married. And so I had to hire an attorney to basically represent me to deal with this complaint. And because of my financial situation at the time, having just graduated from college and not having much money, I couldn't afford to go through the process. It was too expensive. I was traveling back and forth from Massachusetts to come meet with the Sikh investigators. And on advice of counsel, we decided to sign a consent agreement, which said that I did nothing wrong because I did it. And we were able to settle the matter. And it was one of those things that I had to do to move on. And the good important thing is, in the consent decree, that nothing was wrong. I denied obviously everything that was alleged.
What was the allegation? Because when I read that quote from the Connecticut Post from that blurb, I don't understand. And I'm not an SEC
Yeah.
expert. What was the allegation?
The allegation was that I witnessed someone fill out an absentee ballot and then handled it, which I completely denied in the consent agreement. It's untrue. And because, again, at the time, not having much money, and I couldn't afford to go through the process. So we decided, on the advice of counsel, to sign a consent decree and settle the matter so we can resolve it, and we did. But it's part of what kind of jaded me about politics. I was a young man, and
Yeah, how old were you, George, back
oh
20
gosh,
years a year?
I had more hair. Um, it was 2000, I believe. So it was 20 years ago. So I was 20, I don't know, 21, 24 years old, something like that. Just getting started in politics. It was a difficult experience, but this is what happens when you challenge the established political machine. And it was part of a retribution that went on to intimidate me and to silence me. And it kind of jaded me for a little while, to be honest, about politics. This is one of the things that I think discourages people from wanting to get involved in politics, is having to deal with these kind of like gutter politics, smear things that happen sometimes, because people just don't have the money to go through the process to fight back. But the important thing is that it was a complaint. I denied all the allegations, and I was pretty confident if I had the resources to go through the whole process, that everything would have been found. That they didn't have substantial evidence to prove what they alleged.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah, that's fine.
The other thing I want to ask, have you addressed this before? I know, because I remember it was brought up 2 years ago, at least in the comment section. I think I remember seeing it a couple of days before the election.
Yeah.
Have you addressed it publicly before? Has anybody ever written a story on this or anything like that?
I'm sure you can understand, Eugene, part of being a public official, public face, and running for office. You get all kinds of trolls on Facebook. You get all kinds of negative mudslinging thrown at you. Not everything merits a response. We know what the facts are. They're in the consent decree. It's public knowledge. It was 20 years ago, like I said, and I'm very confident that had I had the resources to go through the process, but at the time that it would have been found just fine. So that's the important thing to know.
And then moving on slightly, but the other thing that keeps coming out from political opponents is, Jorge Cabrera, he switches parties all the time. There's been documents circulating on social media, sort of outside of my realm, but there is this allegation, this assertion that, you don't have loyalty to the Democratic Party because you've been in and out of it.
Yeah.
Is there any merit to have you switched parties a lot?
No, I mean, I have switched parties in the past. It was, a couple of times, I believe, and it was a time in my life where I was kind of like, doing some soul searching and figuring out, like a lot of people, what I believe in and what I care about. In retrospect, it was a mistake, but my record speaks for itself. 25 years fighting for working men and women, working on tons of Democratic candidate races. Just last year in the Valley, as you know, Eugene, electing 4 new Democrats to the R-Ansonia Democratic Talent Committee and coming within a hair of electing a Democratic mayor in Derby. So my record speaks for itself. This was a period of time where I was doing some soul searching, and like I said, it's something that a lot of people do, and I'm a Democrat and have been for a long time.
And then in speaking to, you ran against Senator Logan, I guess it was 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
Seems like 1,000, but no, 2 years ago, and you lost by something like 77 votes.
Yep.
It's interesting to hear your opponent's campaign, sort of their take on that loss. They say that, that's not a lot of votes because, if anything, that was the Democrats' race to win based on the blue wave that was happening. How do you respond to that assertion?
Well, let's go back in time a little, right? I mean, in 2018, I had never run for office. No one knew who I was or, where I came from. And we put on an incredible race. We were victorious in getting the Democratic nomination at the convention. We, emerged as the victors in a 3-way primary. And then we came within a hair of defeating George Logan in the fall, 77 votes, as you said. And so, we just continue to do what we're doing and continue to work hard to try to elect Democrats and people who want to fight for working men and women that's what I've been focused on for the last couple of years and pretty much my whole career.
And let me just ask, which town cost you the election in 2018? Have you figured, I mean, you're not going to tell me, I don't think, but who have you zeroed in on where you needed to be more present, or is that just a idiotic reporter question?
No, I mean, it's a 7-town district, as you mentioned at the top of our discussion. It's a big district. There's a lot of ground to cover. It's impossible to talk to everybody. I try to do my best to reach out to as many people as possible. And, you know, we firmly believe that we're in a very strong position to win this year. And, you know, last time around, I was a newcomer. I am not anymore. I received almost 19,000 votes last time. I think we're in a much stronger position. We have a base of support. We've spent the last 2 years building power in the Valley, in Ansonia and Derby, and other parts of the district. And so I think it puts me in a very good position to win this year.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, you were pretty much immediately after the recount was done in 2018, I see you in the Valley all the time.
Yeah.
So it really seems like you're concentrating on Derby and Ansonia. I see you more than some elected officials it's at the point where I'm cutting you out of articles because I don't know if it's fair because it's so close to election day or primary.
Yeah.
You are. So it seems like Derby and Ansonia, you're definitely concentrating there.
I love the Valley. You know, the Valley reminds me a lot of the people that I grew up with, my mom and dad, who were working class people who came here with very little formal education, but a strong work ethic, strong family values, strong sense of community. And, you know, I have a nephew who lives there. I have friends who live in Ansonia, and I'm there often. Those are the people I want to fight for because they remind me of my parents. And the reality is that for too long, the Valley has been left behind by politicians, by elected officials who give lip service to their struggles, but when elected, really don't do anything. They love showing up for the photo op and smiling and talking a good game, but they don't do anything. They don't roll their sleeves up and really get into it and fight hard. And this is personal for me. We need to fight back. We need to make sure that the Valley provides the opportunities for people to get into the middle class and stay there, whether it's healthcare or living wages or having a voice on the job, or just making sure that one job is enough to support your family. And those are the things I believe in. And when I'm in the Valley knocking on doors and talking to people, those are the people that I love. Those are, you know, it really just stokes my passion and reminds me of my family and the struggles and the fights that they went through to give me and my family the opportunities that they can only dream of. And that's what I want to do for the Valley.
And so in terms of your family, let's talk a little bit about where you're from. What did mom and dad do for a living, brothers and sisters? Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Sure. My dad came here when he was 18 years old from Puerto Rico. He was supposed to come here for a year and make some money. Didn't have a formal education, but really a strong work ethic and strong family values. And he worked his tail off in very difficult jobs in factories. You know, oftentimes working the graveyard shift. Many times he took an extra part-time job as a janitor.
Where were some of the places he worked? Where were some of the factories?
He worked at Bridgeport Fittings in Stratford. You know, so there was a couple factories in Stratford that he worked. He was in the plating business, so he was a foreman. They would do the coating on a lot of the circuits and a lot of the things like outlets and things like that. Back when we had good factory jobs. Not anymore. And so he just worked really hard. My mother tried her best to work. She's an asthmatic, so she had a lot of medical issues and wasn't able to work a lot consistently. So healthcare was something that I learned a lesson about really quickly because we just didn't have really good healthcare, and she was often in and out of the hospital.
And where'd you live? Where'd you live growing? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Bridgeport. And then
which part of Bridgeport?
We were on the west side of Bridgeport for some time, and then we moved to the north end of Bridgeport. And so we spent our lives there, and you know, just seeing the struggles they went through and the difficulty they went through just inspired me. And you know, they did an amazing job and was able to cobble together some student loans and some financial aid and get to college at Quinnipiac University, where I majored in political science and history, and then got my first job in politics, working in the legislature for the Speaker of the House.
And so do you have brothers, sisters, siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother who's about a year and a half younger than I am. He works in the court system. He's a judicial marshal, and so that's what he does for a living. And you know, we're just a typical, working class family that believes in the value of hard work. And those are the values that I carry forth in this campaign. Those are the values I'm going to bring with me to the state Senate.
And then, so what year did you graduate high school?
Graduated high school in 1994, Eugene, long time ago.
Man, George, you're younger than me.
It makes you feel good.
I graduated in 92. So then you go to QU, which is a very good school. So what happened there that turned you into politics, or got you on the path toward politics?
Oh, believe it or not, I actually went to Quinnipiac as a pre-med biology major, and quickly learned when I took my first biology lab that I was not going to be a doctor. It wasn't very exciting for me, and gravitated towards some of the more campus activism that happened there. And,
what was going on? What was the type of activism that was happening on campus in the 90s? I don't remember any.
Well, it wasn't like a national movement or anything, but there was activism around, students having a voice in the administration, making sure we had representation on the board of trustees. I was very involved in student government, making sure that the student fees that the college was charging were being used for actual student activities. Decided to run for president of the student government and won, and managed a budget of $500,000 for a couple of years there at Quinnipiac, and gravitated towards political science and history naturally. Started to learn about economics and politics, and how politics can be a vehicle for social change. Some of my early heroes were Martin Luther King Jr., learning about the civil rights movement, learning about how people make change throughout the world. And then I, was one of the persons who led the college chapter of the Quinnipiac Young Dems, and got involved with them or volunteering in local races and campaigns around the state.
And then, so you probably graduated around 98 or so?
98, yep, class of 98. Yeah.
And so what was your first job out of Quinnipiac?
My first job out of Quinnipiac was I was legislative aide for the Speaker of the House, Maura Lyons. She was the first female Speaker of the House. It was my first real job in politics. And I was responsible for helping navigate her legislative agenda through the committee process. So my job was, I would meet with lobbyists on a regular basis. That's how I met a lot of labor lobbyists. And I would draft white papers for her to brief her on legislation. We would assist in hearings, putting testimony together, recruiting people to testify, press releases, managing the dais with her on the House floor, helping her navigate, the floor who wanted to speak, helping manage debate, as well as picking her up in my car at 4 o'clock in the morning and driving her all the way up to Hartford.
What was your parents' reaction to that job right out of college? Was there a sense of pride, or and I'm the black sheep of my family. I'm a reporter from a law enforcement family. But I'm just wondering, was that, what was their reaction to seeing you work in public service?
I think they were excited. I just graduated from college, so they were just, okay, what are you going to do now? Still living at home, not making much money. I think they were just trying to, I think they were very supportive and proud of me, but I think they're also trying to figure out, okay, where's this going? I was contemplating going to law school, and decided not to, after the legislature got a job with the Carpenters Union. I met a lot of labor lobbyists and learned a lot about the struggles of working people, and they offered me a job working for them as an organizer and a wage enforcement specialist that would put together cases for people who were cheated out of their wages.
Gotcha. Okay. I was going to say, wage enforcement specialist. But, one thing in terms of lobbyists and to some extent unions now in this day and age, you see it on the Valley Indy Facebook. I posted a story just to have sort of filler on the Valley Indy page about teachers being afraid to go back to school. And for the first time, people were saying, fire all the teachers. There seems to be somewhat of an anti-union sentiment to some extent among people, I think, in Connecticut today. And the thought of lobbyists sometimes make people hold their noses. And then it comes to, well, you're an insider. You've been inside this political system and sort of the ruling class because the unions run Hartford. How do you deal with that assertion? It's a stereotype, but how do you deal with that?
Well, I think about it in the same vein. There's an old joke: no one likes lawyers until you need one. Well, the way I deal with it is, working people need a voice in the Capitol. The reality is big corporations have a much outsized voice in the Capitol, and you have to organize. You have to make sure you have people who are your allies and who support working people to have living wages, to have access to to quality affordable healthcare, to funding our public schools. You need people who advocate for you, and those are a lot of times they call those lobbyists, but I don't think about it in the same vein. It really matters what you're talking about. It matters what you're advocating for, and you have to be able to put pressure on state government to move in a way that supports people getting into the middle class and then staying there. And that's the work that I've been doing for 25 years. And, I will go to my grave doing it because it's incredibly important. Not only is it the right thing to do to make sure people can make a living with one job and have healthcare when they get sick, be able to stay home with their families for the birth of a child or a sick grandparent or a sick spouse. But I think it's good public policy because right now what I see is people working their tail off and they're not making enough money to survive. I talk to them all the time when I'm knocking on doors. They're one emergency away from financial catastrophe. If we've learned anything from this coronavirus crisis, it's how much it's laid bare the gross income inequality in our state, whether it's in the Valley or even parts of Hamden and up to Naugatuck. People who do the right things, play by the rules, are working really hard, sometimes multiple jobs, and are still just not getting ahead. They don't see a future for their kids. They have children who they've almost bankrupted themselves to send to college, and they're coming back home and having to live in the basement because there's no jobs. That's un-American. That is just simply wrong. And so that's the future I'm fighting for. That's what I really believe in my bones. It's the life my parents were able to provide for me through their hard work and sacrifice. And what I hear on the doors is that people's hard work and sacrifice is not paying off the way it used to. That's got to change. And that's what I truly believe, and that's what I'm fighting for.
And then, George, how did you? You're married. What's your wife's name?
My wife's name's Rebecca.
Rebecca.
College
How did you?
sweethearts.
What'd you say?
We're college sweethearts.
You met her at QU. Okay.
Yeah. Well, she met me. She says I don't remember,
have?
and I probably don't. I was 20 years old or 19 years old, very young. She pursued me, actually.
Oh wait, you know what, George? You just on my end, your internet stopped working, so you froze up there.
Okay.
So let's I had asked how you met. Oh, it might be, this might be storm related because it says my internet is
I got you now.
Is unstable. Okay, and I have you. All right, so that's a little blip. And that's one thing, the wind is howling out there. I apologize.
That's all right.
So I had asked you how you two met, and I didn't hear the answer.
We're college sweethearts. We met in college as freshmen. And the way she tells the story, she saw me on the quad and decided to call me up in my freshman dorm and asked me out, which I was unaccustomed to. But we did and started dating and, decided to get married and have kids. And we have two boys. We're 15-year-old now, twin boys.
And then how long have you been married?
I got to think about it for a minute. Hang on a second.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for this, Eugene. You may have cost me something here.
Sorry.
We got married in 2001, so it's 19 years. I know it, 19. 20 years next year.
And your wife's a principal. You had mentioned during the debate that your wife is a principal. And I got to say, during that debate that the Valley Indy and New Haven Independent, that Paul Bass dragged me into, essentially. But it was really Sam who did a ton of the work, and Harry. I was amazed you guys were able to give 1-minute answers to all these questions. That's not easy to do.
It's hard. It really doesn't do justice to the questions. It's really
it's tough. Yeah. But it got a lot out there in terms of policy stuff. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, COVID-19 is still very much here. I'm terrified to send, I'll admit it, my kids back to school. My son has asthma. Each school has come up with their 3 plans, but they're I don't know. It's just such a strange time. What is it like in terms of campaigning? I'm distracted by what's going on in the world with this virus. Do people even know there is a primary as of this recording 1 week from today? And how has it changed how you're reaching out to people?
So I was concerned about door knocking, which is such an important part of campaigning. So we waited a little while, but I decided to try it. And, obviously being safe, wearing a mask, socially distancing. I step far away from the door after I knock or ring a doorbell. I ask people for permission to talk to them and whether I can give them my literature. And, I've been pleasantly surprised. 9 times out of 10, people are very receptive and they're talking to us. And it's been really a great reception out there. So I just try to be careful and be respectful.
Are people aware? Do they know? Are they just
Yeah,
distracted by? Do
people,
they know there's a primary?
yeah, people are aware. Every once in a while I get someone who isn't, but no, people are aware. I think there's a lot of attention right now in the country because of coronavirus and the highlight, that has caused people to really be more aware of government officials and what government can do. And then the difficult economic situation we're in because of coronavirus, people are definitely have a heightened sense of awareness, I think, of their own vulnerabilities and what they're looking for in leadership.
And then
So,
how about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's okay. You're fine. No.
I was going to ask you. I'm going to throw my narrative at you, right? Because that's what the media, we throw narratives around to make it easier because we're not that smart. So my totally uninformed as an observer, I just read about the race really through other media. So I have, I don't know what I'm talking about. But my take on it is that what's happening with this primary, it's sort of a reflection of what we're seeing all over the country, where you have a younger, progressive candidate sort of staking his claim and trying to usurp what might be seen as an establishment candidate or a moderate Democrat. How do you respond to that? And do you label yourself, I'm a moderate Democrat, or I'm...
No, I'm a working class Democrat. I mean, I always kind of, chuckle a little bit when I hear those things because my entire 25-year career has been anything but. I mean, I have fought against the establishment for 25 years. Just last year with the Stop and Shop strike. I mean, if anyone wants to call pulling 35,000 workers across New England out on strike moderate, good luck. That was a hell of a 11-day fight that preserved healthcare for 35,000 workers, won wage increases and benefit increases. I mean, these are the kinds of things that I've been involved with for 25 years. There's nothing moderate about that.
And is there any type of, why do you think you have an opponent? Why is someone trying to primary you, given the fact that, you ran last time and came as close as a person could come to winning? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, everyone has a right to run, as I did last time and as I do this time. And that's why we have elections, to have people go out and make their cases and voters decide who they want to represent them. I think my record speaks for itself. And I think you're seeing that in the overwhelming support that we're getting from various organizations and groups in this primary. And it's because of the work that we've been putting in, whether it's in the Valley last year or the Stop and Shop strike or the stances I've taken, the fights I've been in. And that's what these elections are about.
And then in terms of sort of your backstory, you had said after graduating college, you were a legislative aide, and then you got a job with a carpenters union, and then I cut you off and went into marriage and all that. But let's go back to the career path. What is your official title today? Because I'm fascinated by unions and like how people work with them, because I don't know that whole career path.
Yeah, so I spent 10 years. I'll take you through the timeline a little bit so you can kind of get a sense. So I spent 10 years with the Carpenters Union, organizing and working on wage cases, advocating for workers. We put on tons of testimony and tons of organizing drives to try to get good construction jobs for carpenters. Then I took a job with United Food and Commercial Workers International out of Washington, D.C., and I would travel around the country. I would get dropped into different campaigns, whether it was a collective bargaining fight or a strike or trying to earn people wages. And then in 2008, I was dispatched to work on the 2008 Obama campaign in battleground states in North Carolina, Maine, and other places, getting President Obama elected. Came back home and got a job with one of our local affiliates in Farmington, Local 919, which represents about 7,000 grocery workers at Stop and Shop. And I've been there for 5 years. And I'm the representative for those members. I'm also the director of our organizing department, which allows me to just stay in touch with workers, help them organize and speak up for better treatment and a voice on the job.
And then I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to
That's what I do every day. So
in terms of, let's say you get through this primary, and let's say you defeat the incumbent in November. Can you still hold your position and be a state legislator? Is there any kind of conflicts there? How does that work?
no, almost everyone up in Hartford has a full-time job. As you know, it's a part-time legislature, and you have to have a job to support your family. So I've done this working in the Capitol, whether as an advocate or as an aide, long enough. So you just have to find a way to balance it. Of course, you have to get support from your employer, which I do, and be able to balance your schedule and do it in a way that is faithful to what you have to do at work and faithful to your constituents.
And then in terms of, if you were to be elected and you go up to Hartford, what would be your first priority for the people of your district?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of different things I want to fight for, but some of the more, I guess, bigger ones that I'm really concerned about, one is healthcare. We need to do a much better job of getting people good, high quality, affordable healthcare. The fact is our premiums are too high, deductibles are too high. There's no reason why we shouldn't be getting more of our pharmaceuticals or drugs from Canada, which is cheaper. So one of the things I'm really passionate about, part of it is because of what I saw my mom go through as an asthmatic, and not having high quality healthcare. My wife also, this past December, had stage 1 colon cancer that we had surgery for, and thank God she's doing okay. But I remember having a conversation with her after we got the good news that the surgery was successful, that our healthcare was really good, and we were going to pay $0 for it. But the procedure itself was almost $70,000. It's insane. And I know when I talk to people on the doors that this is happening to lots of people. They're oftentimes remortgaging their home to pay for medical expenses, or their coverage is really bad. It's not adequate enough. It doesn't have dental, it doesn't have vision. So healthcare is a really big priority for me, and I'm going to be in that fight to make sure that more people have access to high quality, affordable healthcare. I think in addition to that, connected to that is good paying jobs. We have to be able to create a society in Connecticut where one job is enough for people to make a living, and that's why I had supported the $15 minimum wage, and it was saddened to see Senator Logan vote no against that vote, essentially saying workers don't deserve a raise. So that's an important issue for me as well. And then, of course, in the Valley, talking to elected officials, transportation, the Waterbury train line, is really important. We need people to really push that and get more transportation up and down the corridor to spur economic activity.
Okay, well, Mr. Cabrera, that's pretty much all our time.
Okay.
I want to thank you for coming on here and talking to me. And sure. I guess we'll see what happens August 11th.
Well, Eugene, I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I enjoyed our chat, and stay safe.
All right, you too. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.